Right, so the other day I did a video where the Labour right-wingers of Sir Kid Starver have flown into a racism weaponising rage over the selection by the Green Party of Joe Bird to stand in Birkenhead as their parliamentary candidate against former chair of the Progress faction within the parliamentary Labour Party, right-winger Alison McGovern, and after they'd made sure to deselect the rotten lefty incumbent MP in Birkenhead, Mick Whitley, in order to do that to install McGovern. That a socialist is back on the ballot has them wailing a little bit. And given how much they all say socialists are unelectable, you'd perhaps find yourself wondering what they're making so much fuss about. Surely you aren't afraid, are you? But I also made mention in that video, and the one covering the blatant use of boundary changes as cover to get another socialist Labour MP deselected, that the entire saga was completely avoidable due to the fact Wirral West constituency, just next door to Birkenhead, was being vacated as the incumbent Labour MP there, Margaret Greenwood, was standing down at the next election. So why could McGovern not go there, people asked? Well, indeed, why not? The excuse was she wanted to represent where she lived, and her hometown is now, due to those boundary changes, in Birkenhead constituency. But of her former constituency, this forms just a tiny fraction. So much for her being their representative and the people there being important to her. The truth is probably closer to the fact that Birkenhead is just a lot safer seat. Could Whitley have applied to Wirral West then instead? Well, sure, he could have. He'd likely have stood no more chance of being selected there than he was still to stay in Birkenhead, but he also only wants to represent where he actually lives. He's not prepared to strap a parachute on and stand elsewhere, and fair play to him for that. He wants to represent the people that are where he lives, and that's exactly how it should be. But that does bring us on inevitably to a selection process in Wirral West. And in true Starmer fashion, bring on the parachutees. They're coming out of the sky because, God forbid, locals ever be allowed to pick their own representative. Now, there's been issues in Wirral West for months as it happens. Back in May, Wirral West CLP got suspended by the Labour Party without any explanation as to why. There was conjecture, of course. By this point, the CLP knew Greenwood was standing down. The thinking was Starmer and Co were getting in quick to impose somebody on them. Boundary changes at that point made people think they were going to get lumbered with Alison McGovern, but she made it clear Birkenhead was her target. This was also right after the local elections, and in a blatant stitch-up on Wirral Council, the Labour group leader had done a deal with the Tories and the Lib Dems to bribe them with senior council positions in order to secure chairmanship for himself and freeze out the Green Party entirely from any areas of responsibility from any senior council roles, including that now Birkenhead parliamentary candidate Joe Bird out of any positions themselves on the council. The same guy, incidentally, had also been involved in the smears that took place in another Wirral constituency, Wallasey, in order to protect the right-wing MP there, Angela Eagle. You might remember the whole Brickgate episode where she claimed a brick had been thrown through her window despite there being no brick. No involvement by her CLP could be proven, and the entire affair was basically an exercise in helping Eagle avoid a trigger ballot, as her CLP were, to say the least, not very happy with her and were indeed planning one. So a suspended CLP, incumbent MP standing down, Wirral Council full of right-wing alleged Labour people who are actually happy to work with the Tories, run a council with them even. Well, you can imagine the state of the selection for the parliamentary seat in Wirral West then, can't you? Needless to say, no local left-wingers stood a hope in hell, and a shortlist of 4 has been announced, and that list consists of, according to the Wirral Socialist Twitter account, a guy who tried to bridge a council budget deficit by charging the poor for littering, a member of the campaign team of Owen, the ice cream man Smith's failed leadership bid against Jeremy Corbyn, a former Tory council candidate, and someone else also implicated in that Brickgate fiasco in Wallasey. What a choice before them. I can imagine the local CLP members are champing at the bit to get out and campaign for one of them, can't you? Yeah, I'll come back to that one in a minute. Matthew Patrick is the chap, the alleged budget deficit candidate, but bullying allegations made against him are far more well known because he ended up resigning from Wirral Council after they came out. This was back in 2018. So quite the quality candidate to be shortlisted by the NEC. The NEC, of course, not locals, obviously. He denied the bullying allegations were anything to do with his decision to quit. Instead, he said he had a new job in London, which is where he's been ever since. That new job, incidentally, well, he popped up in Hackney not all that long ago on the local campaign forum and was allegedly involved in the selection of councillors there, including a certain Thomas Dewey, who I've covered in other videos, having been selected to stand for and elected to Hackney Borough Council despite being investigated for the possession and manufacture of indecent images of children, which saw him stand down within days of being elected, and recently he was sentenced for that. Arguably, this is the candidate standing in Wirral West with the most baggage. Sue Percy is another candidate. She's the one that stood for the Tories in 2006. So again, blue Tories, red Tories, all completely interchangeable. The blue variety more than welcome in Starmer's Labour. Socialists, not so much. But then that's not exactly news anymore, is it? Jen Thornton is claiming to be from the Wirral, but left for London 20 years ago and has been working for a right-wing Labour MP there. She's also tried already to get selected somewhere else for Clwyd North in Wales. She was on the shortlist there only just back in July. So her home turf of decades ago, Wirral West, wasn't even her first choice. Needless to say, she wasn't selected there. And the final name is Gillian Wood, a Labour councillor, another right-winger. The local CLP, as we've seen across the country, we're having none of this. The Wirral West CLP Twitter account sent out a tweet in the aftermath informing members that due to this factional infliction of right-wing candidates, when local CLP officers and left-wing councillors were left off the shortlist, that no fewer than 10 members of the CLP executive were quitting their roles. Much as we saw happen when Starmer's lot did all of this in Broxtowe, which I've also covered in other videos. The CLP chair, vice chair for membership, treasurer, political education officer, BAME officer, youth officer, joint disability officers, joint secretaries, and a branch treasurer have all quit. This will have massive ramifications. In Broxtowe, for example, they've been unable to get the CLP up and running there. And there's all this happened with them some 6 months ago. So the same could happen here in Wirral West. An entire CLP paralysed going into a general election, as it would appear, unless there are enough right-wingers prepared to step in. We haven't seen that in Broxtowe. There may not be enough to get this place running here. And indeed, it comes down to a question of experience as well, because the people that tend to run CLPs tend to be some of the more experienced, more active members of the Labour local membership. And you've just seen 10 of them swan off. The Wirral West CLP account on Twitter, incidentally, just after this tweet was sent out, though, mysteriously got disabled. Now, the youth officer has been notably critical in his comments off the back of this. He said, "It is not the duty of a party member to blindly and voluntarily campaign for whoever happens to wear a red rosette on polling day, but it is to campaign for those who would be the best possible representatives for the area. As none of the candidates meet this threshold, I will not be campaigning or endorsing anyone in this selection contest, and I am currently undecided of whether I will vote at all." That's the damage Starmer's Labour are doing locally up and down the country. And I'll keep covering every incident I get wind of like this, because no amount of polling reflects local members who volunteer their time to see the party do well, resigning and downing tools and refusing to campaign. The leadership can impose all the candidates it likes, but they can't force people in those areas to back them or give them their endorsement, support them, and give their free time up to support them when they've been foisted upon them. Wallasey is still saddled with Angela Eagle. Birkenhead are expected to vote in a right-winger in Alison McGovern, having lost their socialist incumbent, and now Wirral West is lumbered with a certain right-wing choice here too, and all whilst the Central Party offers no hope or change, just more Tory misery as well. Solidarity to those in Wirral West who have been shafted like so many others have been now, it's not good enough. And it absolutely is not something that deserves to be rewarded by people still going out and campaigning for them and voting for them. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the video useful. Please like, share, and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Please have your say on this in the comments below and be part of the conversation. What will it take to get Starmer and Co to stop behaving like this? Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation where the Green selection in Birkenhead has indeed had the Labour right having a collective aneurysm. I look forward to seeing who the Greens select in Wirral West. Hopefully, they too will have a socialist still on the ballot to vote for, as Birkenhead does now in Joe Bird. And I'll hopefully see you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.